Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Matt, and today we're going to review Ed Piskor's Red Room #1. Before we get into the comic, if you wouldn't mind sharing, subscribing, commenting down below, let me know if you guys have read this, what you thought, if you've never heard of it, how crazy it was for you to read it, whatnot. So, and also before we get into this comic, there's a big warning, parental advisory on this. This comic is not for kids. It is definitely rated mature. It is very graphic and violent. Let's get into it. So first off, we got the cover here. As you can see, it's called The Antisocial Network, which is like this story arc that he's writing. And it's Red Room by Ed Piskor. So Ed Piskor is kind of like an indie creator. He's done a lot of interesting books, kind of like a lot of them have kind of been like historical books where like he'll take a history of something like X-Men or hip hop and he'll condense it into a very readable uh history graphic novel where you could just breeze through like years of history and then you're like, oh, I know what happened in X-Men now, or oh, I know what happened with hip hop in the 80s and stuff. So this is his first monthly comic from what I understand, and this is like him bringing back the like splatter punk 80s fucked up black and white comics, like Faust and all that kind of stuff, where just like there was no comics code for this stuff. It was all on. This is his version of that. So we see on this first page, we get introduced to the main character right away. It is this big dude named Davis. He works at the police department. He's not a policeman, but he's like works with them. His wife and kid were in a car accident. Turns out his wife died. His kid's name is Haley. The premise for this book is there are rooms on the internet, kind of like OnlyFans, but they're in the dark web. And what they do is they make snuff films in real time on these videos, and people log on to it, kind of like a cam girl site or something, and they like pay Bitcoin to see something happen, or to they say, oh, take an eyeball, and then they'll give a like 1/10 of a Bitcoin, and then the guy will do that or whatever. This is not for the kiddos, so, or people who are just not into extreme gore. By the fourth page, we're seeing the intent. Then I'm not going to show you every page, but this is like what we're talking about. This is like your chat room. There's a bunch of different companies that do this. Pentagram Pictures is one of them. And like I said, you got the chat room on the side, you got the Bitcoin down below. We get introduced to this main family, which is Haley and the dad, Davis. They're at the mother's funeral, and he's got some kind of weird, dark thing going on. And Pentagram Pictures, they have not been doing so hot. Basically, people are bored. That's basically where they're at, is they're kind of boring to their audience. And so they're looking for some new blood. And no, no pun intended. Basically, like I said, this is an introduction to how their system works. We get introduced to all their different characters. So there's one called Hazard Paleface, who's like this dude who I guess gets shipped to them whenever he needs to make money. And then they wake him up, put this clown face on him, and then he kills someone. Then they package him back up and ship him back home or whatever. That is generally like how we're getting introduced to the corporation of this Pentagon Pictures. But basically, we see throughout this issue that Davis is found out by Pentagram Pictures. They're looking for new talent, right? So they have put a bug out that's like it says like, oh, film your own videos, they're untraceable. And he gets them and then makes his own video, and because of that, they find it and they knock him out and they bring him back to their lair, and they're like, hey, we know who you are. We know that you're this guy named Major Slaughter, and you made this video, and you have like a dark past, and this isn't the first time you've done it. So they're kind of like bringing him into the fold. That's basically this first issue. I don't want to spoil everything, but obviously this comic isn't for everybody. I will say I enjoyed it a lot. I'm a big fan of Ed Piskor's like YouTube channel. cartoonist kayfabe is what that's called. And on that, they break down comics and talk about the history of comics and whatnot. And he went through like how he made this thing. I mean, all of this is hand drawn. He used like duotone and stuff that they don't have anymore. Very cool like design to this whole book, and I really appreciate that. I have seen a lot of horror, a lot of like like hostile kind of movies or whatever, like obviously Hollywood stuff, but like people will call them disturbing movies. So I've seen a lot of those. So this didn't like shock me maybe as it might some other people. So be aware of that. But I will say the story's been good so far. I like that they're setting this Davis guy up to be kind of like a BTK killer where like he works around the police, but he's not a cop. He got married and whatnot. And so it's kind of like BTK where he had a family and he would like have really long cool down periods in between his murders. And so now that the mom died, that's kind of like this dad's switch to now pick up murdering again or something. So it's pretty interesting. And I really want to see how it goes. Apparently, all of these issues are going to be like self contained. And this issue was self contained for what it was. There's obviously a story arc that's going to continue, but I want to see like kind of how the story progresses and how he makes them all one shot, one self-contained issue. I'm gonna give this 4.5 out of 5. Art is on point. This book is creatively on point for sure. I didn't give it a 5 because this story, like I said, I have personally seen so much gore and movies and stuff that it's like, oh, this just seemed kind of like a normal story to me. But for the normal person, this might be like the most shocking thing they've ever seen in their life. So that might be changing your perspective. You might think this is the most groundbreaking thing you've ever read or whatever. So in that case, it might be a 5 for you, or it might be less for you because you don't like the gore. Once again, if you wouldn't mind sharing, subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.